Before we jump into today's video, please remember to like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. I put up new videos every week, sometimes twice a week. I really appreciate every new subscriber, every new like. It gives me encouragement to continue talking and doing this type of work. Namaskaram, Vanakkam, and welcome, friends. Today we're going to talk about 5 misconceptions people have about being an American Hindu. Because let's face it, when non-Hindus think of Hindus or American Hindus, they probably think of this.
Oh, no, I know I've got the hair, but I'm not one of you people. Hello, how are you?
Hopefully today's video will dispel some of those misconceptions. So, misconception number 1. All of us are Hare Krishnas. There's a good number of people who are Hare Krishnas or members of ISKCON, however, not everybody is, and if you ask people who are in the ISKCON organization or the Hare Krishna movement, they might actually say that they're not Hindu at all. The rest of us will have a different opinion on that. But no, not all Americans who become Hindu follow the Hare Krishnas. There's a lot of variety. You'll find lots of people here on YouTube that come from different backgrounds. So my background is that of Sri Vaishnavism, which is Vaishnavism, the worship of Vishnu from southern India, or it's also sometimes referred to as Sri Sampradaya. There is some overlap with ISKCON and the Hare Krishnas, but it gets it's kind of a tangled web in terms of where the overlap is, because we're talking about 1,000+ years of history and intricate theologies and philosophies. Just to make things simple, no, they are not the same. Even the forms of Vishnu that we choose to worship are different. So not every Hindu is Hare Krishna. I have Hindu friends who are either American or European who are Advaita Vedanta followers, who are bhaktas of the goddess or bhaktas of Shiva. So there's lots of different variety. We're not kind of this monolithic group. Misconception number 2. We can't be Hindu because we're not Indian. Or sometimes that is said in the form of, we can't be Hindu because we don't have caste. This is a bit of a tricky one, in that the origins of the word Hindu is the Persian form of the word Sindhu, which was used during the Vedic period by Persians to refer to people who lived east of the Sindhu, east in the Indus Valley region. So it's kind of a loaded term because at one time it was specifically to denote a people, a culture, a group of languages. However, its use has changed over time, and it now is used to refer to religion, or the collection of religions, I should say. It can be used as an ethnic identity. It just depends on the individual. So the question of labeling an identity become kind of difficult to navigate. So to make things easy, most people will say, if you're a follower of Sanatana Dharma, which is the proper name for our religion, that we're Hindu. So to address this misconception, not all Hindus are Indian. You have Nepali Hindus, you have Sri Lankan Hindus, you have Vietnamese Hindus, you have Tibetan Hindus, Bhutanese Hindus, you have Thai Hindus, you have Indonesian Hindus, you have Japanese Hindus. And these are all communities that have been around for 1,000, 1,500, in some cases over 2,000 years. So it's hardly a new phenomena of this religion spreading. And I talk a little bit about this in my video on did I convert to Hinduism, so I'll link it somewhere down below in the description, if I remember. I'm sometimes bad about that, but it should be in the description. Misconception number 3. We're doing this because we want to be like counterculture. We want to be different from everybody else. Sure, that might be a phase that some teenagers go through, but for most of us adults, no. We don't really have a lot of interest in what other people think in regards to our faith. This is about us living our truth. And quite honestly, to be an American Hindu, it takes a lot of work. There's years of study, of practice. We have to learn rituals or practices that we didn't grow up with. We have to become comfortable with languages that we don't hear spoken at home, we don't hear spoken every day, and we didn't grow up around. And for some of us, it's many languages, because you have the ritual languages in the temple, Sanskrit or Tamil, and then you also have the local languages that might be more dominant in temples if you happen to go to a more traditionally Indian temple. And even then, there's a big difference between temples that have a majority northern population and ones that have a majority South Indian population. So there is a lot of cultural and linguistic navigation that takes place, and a lot of people who decide that they're going to identify as being American Hindu, there's a lot of uncertainty and insecurity at first. So this isn't something that's taken lightly. This isn't like a fad, because it takes too much dedication to be that. All right, misconception number 4. We're all hippies. This is thanks to the counterculture movement of the 60s, and you can kind of lump this one in with the last misconception. And that's just because in mainstream culture, when we think of anything Eastern or esoteric, it's usually lumped in with, flower power and 1960s kids and Woodstock and all that. We are a very different group from people who might fall into that category. So no, we are not hippies. Misconception number 5. This one is the most challenging to talk about, and that is the idea that American Hindus aren't really Hindu, they're just practicing cultural appropriation. This is a difficult one because cultural appropriation absolutely does happen in Hinduism. But it doesn't come from those of us who identify and practice the faith. It comes from people who set up yoga studios or offer yogic coaching or any of these other types of things, but then they say, well, this spirituality, this is yoga, this isn't Hinduism. You can't separate them. So where we see cultural appropriation is in the selling of yoga as being something other than having its origins in Sanatana Dharma. The other place we see it is with big corporations taking imagery and putting them on bags and shirts and pants and rugs and whatever, and then selling them. There was some company not too long ago who put this image of Ganesh on a leather purse and charged $3,500 for it. Whew, there's so many problems with that, I don't even know where to begin, but that's cultural appropriation. Somebody who has studied the Vedas, the Upanishads, who learns from a qualified teacher, who learns the chants in Sanskrit, the person who practices puja and does japa and has read and put into practice the principles of the Gita or the Tantras. That's not cultural appropriation, that's someone diving deeply into something that resonates with their soul. The other problem with this allegation is that it seems to only be thrown at Westerners who choose to adopt Hinduism. We don't see the same discourse applied to Westerners who convert to Islam or who convert to Buddhism or people who convert to Christianity, who might be coming from outside the Judeo-Christian cultural sphere. It only seems to be the Westerners coming into Hinduism that is problematic for people who are not Hindu. This is the other thing. There might be some people who are born Hindu who want to claim cultural appropriation for people not born into the religion, and that's fine. That is certainly your right to. However, most of the time this accusation comes from people either in academia or people who are in mainstream media in the West who seem to have a problem for one way or for one reason or another with people who become Hindu. And usually when they throw these allegations, they've never actually stepped foot once in a Hindu mandir. So it's a real difficult and kind of murky area to pull apart. But no, those of us who have dedicated our lives to Hindu practice, who do the best to live our faith, no, not cultural appropriation, at least from my perspective. So that's it for today. Thanks so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you on another video. Hariom.